All right, so our next talk is about hair. And for many of us, as people of color, hair can be a little bit of a controversial topic by the time you swing into a character creator. It just hasn't been done super well. Technology is not really designed for folks like us. But one of the benefits of having more people of color working behind the scenes, more technology and resources and research dedicated to figuring out how to make this hair look good is that we have more studios out there making this hair look good. And our next speaker is working on one of those teams. He's the creative lead at Coded Arts and a senior lecturer at the University of Trinidad and Tobago. Please welcome to the stage, Caiphus Moore.
Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, game devs of color, wherever you are in the world. I'm Caiphus Moore, and I'm going to get into my talk about real-time grooms for ethnic hair in video games, so using Unreal Engine. So as we get started, first I would know, because I would want to know too, who the heck is this guy, and why should I be listening to him? So let's run down that really quickly. So about me, I'm a Trinidadian American artist. I grew up in Miami. I have over 20 years of experience in 3D art for the video games industry. Work with the top companies such as THQ, Konami, and most recently Electronic Arts. I'm now based in Trinidad and Tobago and the lead of the game art specialization here at the University of Trinidad and Tobago. And I also serve as the creative director for Coded Arts. We're an external development studio creating artwork for video games and original IPs. I'm passionate about mentoring. I support young artists across the USA and the Caribbean through our workshops and lectures. And when I'm not creating art, I enjoy practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and exploring sushi restaurants around the world. One roll, you see, that's a joke. I hope you guys get it, because in Jiu-Jitsu you roll, and in sushi you eat rolls is two. Anyway, hope that didn't lose too many of you after that one, because there's going to be plenty more after that. So here's some of the companies that we've worked for. We can't mention all of them due to NDAs, but hopefully you'll recognize some of those logos. And some of our Caribbean themed work. These are examples of what we're working on currently for our IP here in Trinidad. Stuff like this. And I know you guys can pause it anytime you want to take a deeper look. Stuff like this. Procedural boats. We like to do stuff. We have a very small team, so we make stuff procedurally that we can switch out parts and have a fast iterative process. So you'll see stuff like this, as well as these shanty towns and houses, which are built modularly. And you can see pieces like that, right? We do that because, as I said, small team, small work environment, and we need to do a lot of things for our world. So we do it procedurally and modularly. That makes nice environments like this. And as you can see, interiors like that. And finally, this is a character that we're working on for our game. And of course, some of the people that do it. And they look like this. So shout outs to our hair team that worked endlessly to achieve the level of quality that we demanded of them. Giovanna Mohammed, Joel Ramjam, Renelle Williams, Isaac George, Jenna Marie Smith, and I hope I'm not forgetting anyone, because they will hunt me down and take me out. So what is this talk about? Well, of course, by the title, hair. And more specifically, ethnic hair, or 4C hair, or black hair, or our hair, whatever you want to call it, it's hair. And more importantly, for better representation in games. So the reason is because we are creating our own IP here in Trinidad and Tobago, and we realize that there's a problem. And that problem is, there's a lack of authentic, natural ethnic hair in video games. And not to say that there is no ethnic hair, because lately the industry's been paying attention and we're making progress. As you can see, here's a couple examples that are already in the industry. God of War and Grabata, I believe is how you say her name. She was in there. Of course, everybody knows Miles Morales, who's sporting that Killmonger hairdo. And when he's not, clean shaven. Then there's also Eddie Gordo from one of my favorite fighting games, Tekken 8, who's also, once again, sharing the Killmonger hairdo. And then there's a whole bunch of new ones coming out in GTA 6, as we can see here and here. So, but our IP, it takes place on a Caribbean island, and it's steeped in an old world with tradition and culture. So having a brand new hairdo and clean haircut really wasn't working. So what we needed to do was how to create a variety of ethnic hair that represents the many different textures and styles in the Caribbean. And our problem was how to do it fairly quickly and be able to teach it to junior artists, student interns, and people that haven't had the long, long history of industry experience. That's a conundrum. So we decided to use Unreal Engine 5 for its powerful metahuman customization and its integration of hair groups. Made it pretty easy as opposed to the other engines out there. And it also has a large community and many current potential clients that we work with as well use that engine. So it's kind of like a bang for the buck, killing two birds with one stone. First step, we had to gather references of natural hair that reflects the NPCs that would take place in our fictitious island for our IP. And that was the easy part because we live in the Caribbean and we can open up the door and whistle and say, hey, you and you, come, we need reference. So we gathered reference, many of them, like this is just a sampling of the many, many different references that we gathered. And then after that, it was to see if we can replicate it using Maya's XGen, as well as replicate the look with hair cards. So it's a two-step process. The first process is learning how to do the XGen grooms. And the second step was taking those XGen grooms and replicating them in hair cards. So if you're not too versed in game development, grooms are very expensive. Hair cards are much more budget friendly and able to be used in most games. But doing it with our hair texture, very difficult to do. That was indeed the hard part. So our team spent months learning how to make ethnic hairstyles. After that grueling process, we created our own internal hair Bible to make sure it was teachable. And a hair Bible is basically a PDF document that we can give to any junior artist, any intern, any person joining our team and say, hey, follow this thing, go through all 45 pages and see if you can recreate the hairs that we want you to do in our style. So here's an example of what that hair Bible might have looked like. So as you can see, XGen for Dummies, Code Arts Hair Bible, table of contents, best practices, explanation, guides, modifiers, the works. Even equipped with some beautiful images and pictures. So we needed a junior artist or a student, like we said, to pick this up extremely quickly and not have so much trouble understanding the steep learning curve. So this is a proof of concept to see if we can scale our team in case a client requested it or if our IP needs it. Right now, we might have 2 or 3 hair artists, but what if this game gets major traction? What if 100,000 people want to play it tomorrow? We'll have to pick that up. So we did that, and these are some of our XGen hair results. So as you can see, we have all these different hairs spinning around, showing how we did it. These are the results that we came through with XGen on our first attempt. And I think for the most part, we were extremely successful. Our core team of 3 artists pulled this off in maybe about 3 months. I think it took us to do all of this. And it was, I think it was successful. You could disagree or agree or add some comments and message us later to let us know what you think. But we wanted to make sure they're very diverse styles from curls to dreadlocks to not perfect dreadlocks. As you can see, it took us 3 artists in 3 weeks and a mission to create a lot of unique styles using Unreal Engine 5, metahuman customization, and balancing high fidelity to make sure everything looks good. And those are the results. Authentic hair grooms that break the mold. And I think we're on a really, really good pace with Coded Art. So that was that. Now, after the hair grooms, we have to move on. And that was the hair cards. Because once you make the hair grooms, as you said in the beginning, for XGen, you still have to refine it for hair cards because when you put it inside of your game engine, Unreal specifically, it will bog down the frame rate. Things will go really slow. So as you can see, this example is just showing how we took a hairdo, made hair cards. So on the left is the hair cards, and on the right is showing the actual topology and the geometry. And then we also had to reinstate that with textures to make sure they worked well and being very simple so that there's a single draw call inside the game and not having to load texture upon texture and slowing down the system. So here's a comparison to show on the left, the X groom, and then in the middle, the hair cards. So for our game specifically, if there's a cutscene, you'll see the hair grooms. So it looks pretty nice when it's close up and the lighting and all that great stuff. But as the camera backs up and it goes back to gameplay, we will swap it with the hair cards so that it can maintain frame rate and be optimal for what we're doing. And on the right, of course, is just an example of the polygonal geometry so you can see what that looks like if it was overlaid. And again, the textures that we use to do that. Now, moving forward, we also dived into some stuff with NVIDIA path tracing to make sure that when we render it in Unreal, it looks extremely high quality and it's pushed the envelope, as to say. So let me go back on that. Back to NVIDIA path tracing. Okay, so we did NVIDIA path tracing hair samples to push the envelope to make sure that we can get the best visual fidelity of what we're trying to show for our IP. And this is NVIDIA, and you're going to see some of these examples like this. So it's much higher fidelity, looks extremely realistic, has all the fresnel, which is the shininess and the nice light catching it, and it still stays true to ethnicity with the 4C hairstyles. So we have this cornrows ponytail, followed by some loose locks. As we said, we're in a very rural and industrial village in the Caribbean, so it's not many barbershops around there, right? So we also have some nice braided Afro puffs. So that was the NVIDIA part. So when we get close enough within our cutscenes, we can maintain some very high visual fidelity. The key takeaways from all this: documentation is a must. Building a library of modifiers so you don't have to start from scratch every time you begin. And of course, which we learned using XGen with our system called SOS, save often, silly. Because if not, things crash and you will lose tons of work and have to start over again and be very upset. We heard many artists screaming in the building and we thought something happened. Maybe a fridge fell on them or somebody cut off their toe. Nope. They just lost 17 hours of work because they weren't saving often. So SOS, of course, make that. Save your modifiers, save your presets, save your scripts, and test it with new artists to make sure everything's working. Those are the first steps. Third step, how to make it easy to do for an entire indie game. Tools, workflow, and easy training. So if you have the luxury of having tech artists, use them to make your life easier. We did that here. We have some tech artists that really like Blender, and we use a lot of Blender because it's free, number one. And number two, there's a large community for it, and you can learn a lot about it on the internets and on the social medias. There's a large community. So what we did was take Blender and made Blender hair cards tool. And this is an example video that we will show you how it worked. So when you're trying to mimic or interpolate the grooms that we've made in XGen, we can take the curves from XGen, bring them into Blender, and make hair cards very fast so that it matches the grooms. Here's an example. So as you can see there, our tool is actually drawing out curves and it's making hair cards for you automatically. In addition, it's also making UVs for you so that you don't have to go in there and try to make your UVs. You can actually make your hair cards, draw your tool, as you can see there, and make your strands pretty easily and pretty effectively and intuitively, rather than trying to use a move tool and move these polygons around, move these hair cards around, moving these things around. It makes it much easier as intuitive as an artist to just draw your strands, draw your curves, and you get your UVs for free. And not only do you get your UVs for free, our tech artists were able to make a UV adjuster so that you can actually scale the UVs and reduce the UVs in case you need more fidelity for your texture, as you can see in the next example here. That's nice. That's real nice. Good. So that was our hair cards tools. So now we're going to show you using that tool and using the XGen from before, how closely we're able to match the hair grooms and the hair strands to make sure that when you switch from cutscenes to in-game, there is no, fuzzing or jumping or something that's out of whack. So on the left, the hair grooms in XGen, and on the right, the hair cards that are done in Blender. That's one example of the Bantu knots. This is a second example. So pull back braids. As you can see, it's almost one-to-one, exactly the same. And some twist. Yeah. So after all that work, here's a example of the hair card video and showing you Jack geometry in depthly and how much polygons it was costing us. So due to copyright infringements, we decided to take the sound out of here to make sure that everybody can enjoy it and not have to get pinged by anybody, by the YouTube police or anybody like that. And here you go. These are the Bantu hair knots spinning around, and you see the hair card example, and then you actually see how much geometry it actually took to create something like this. So usually in AA or AAA standards, you can get up to 50,000 to 125,000 polygons limits for hair strands. And we're able to keep within that budget for all these hairdos, as you can see. And that's the geometry, and that's the poly count. It's not bad. Looks very much like the original hair groom itself. And here's some twists as well. And if everybody knows 4C hair is extremely difficult to do with hair cards, but we were able to find a nice way and a nice balance to make it look really, really realistic and keep its authenticity. And we're very happy with our results. And this one's only 40K, so it's a great budget. Great for performance as well in our game. Right? So 4C, most difficult hair thing to do. Yet we try to make it look easy. Now coming out to the end of this thing, here are some final examples of our latest hair grooms. We haven't put these into hair cards just yet, but they're still a hair groom, so you can see how what we're shaping up. We're gonna have a lot of authentic hairstyles in our game and our IP. We just put these on regular metahumans for now without showing the style of our game because it's not at that stage where we're going to introduce it to the world just yet. But in a few months, keep a lookout. You'll probably see it. Yeah. It's really cool hairstyles, man. I love this stuff. That's why I'm in here talking to you guys, and I hope you enjoyed as much as we do giving it to you guys. We really hope you guys are pleased with what we're trying to do here, and hopefully it catches fire in the industry, and we start to see more authentic hairdos coming out that represent 4C hair community. Again, the Bantu knots. That was a very difficult one for us to test, so we use it as a main case study. I think that brings me to my conclusion, and that is the end. Thank you very much for welcoming me to Game Devs of Color this year. Again, my name is Caiphus Moore, one of the co-owners and the creative director here at Coded Arts. You can find us at www.codedarts.studio on the World Wide Web, and then LinkedIn and Instagram and all those other cool places, Facebook. Just look for Coded Arts and I'm sure you'll find us. Thank you for your time. Peace.
I think for some folks, it can be easy to underestimate the impact of technology like this. But for those of us who are used to putting aside a piece of ourselves when we hop into the digital worlds that we love, this matters. And part of the reason that I love this talk is because it's not just about the technological advancements that allow the portrayal of textured hair more realistically. It's also about the ways that we build infrastructure, yesterday's word, to make sure that these kinds of advances can continue into the future. That it's not just about figuring out how to design a tool, but making sure that junior artists can use it, that there's documentation so that they can use it efficiently, so that there are no excuses as to why you shouldn't utilize advances like this on your own dev team. I love this show. And I love learning about these things. So thank you again to Caiphus Moore and the folks over at Coded Arts for putting this talk together. If you want to find out more about the work that Caiphus is doing, you can follow him on Instagram at Art of Caiphus.